2, 1. Kirk, welcome us back to the podcast.
All right, well, welcome back to a very special episode of the SandTrap Podcast. We're here on episode 15. Very, very big week for the podcast. Made some moves this week. You can now view this on Spotify or YouTube. So if you're watching on either of those platforms, welcome. Please like, subscribe, or leave a comment. You can also follow us on Twitter at SandTrap Podcast. Got some new stuff in the works, looking at doing some weekly videos coming soon, stuff during the week so we can get you live bets day by day. Maybe have some guest picks in there as well. And then even further down the road, looking at a merch situation. So, Josh, you have anything on that?
Merch? What merch do we have?
Josh, there's some stuff in the works right now that you don't even know about. So we're going to be there really soon.
Okay, well, speaking of guest picks, we got a couple of guests in studio for the first time ever. Boys, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourselves?
Hi, this is Matthew Rush. I'll be joining the SandTrap Podcast this week as a Formula One correspondent. I might contribute to a little MLB and NBA as well. And I just want to give a shout out to Chick Hicks, 2006 Piston Cup winner, a true champion, and I think we should all take a moment to appreciate what he did in 2006. And now for Parker Scott.
Howdy. What's going on? I'll be pitching into just about every sport except F1 because I don't care about that sport. But every other sport will be in good looks, and I'm planning on going undefeated today. So put that on the books.
All right, guys. Parker, just try and be a little closer to the mic. No worries, but we're trying to function on two mics here in the studio. First time having anyone in studio. We've had some guests on here before, like Jackson and Lawson. For those who like them, hopefully we're going to have them back on soon. Got a couple other guys that we're talking to about getting on here. Al's been asking about it. So, but yeah, we like to get some other voices in here. I would definitely say, Matt has a leg up on us on F1 and soccer. We're not talking that today, but that's something he's got to step up on us with. And then Parker, obviously, golf and MLB, I'd definitely give him the edge over us on those picks. So really looking forward to hearing from them today. But Josh, why don't you go ahead and give us the rundown and let us know what we're talking about.
All right, so the first thing we're going to do, we're going to start off with last week's records. Then we're going to jump straight into F1, golf, NBA. BYOB is back. Everyone's been looking forward to that ever since, the first episode ever. I talked about rivers. I'm still sticking with the Amazon. If you know, you know. Then MLB, UFC, our guarantees, and then we'll get on out of here.
All right, well, just going into last week's records, Josh, you actually went 10-6. I went 8-7. I'm going to try and ease that 8-7 for me a little bit. I went 0-3 on NHL. I warned you I didn't know what I was talking about. And for those reasons, we're not going to talk about that today.
Yeah, I went 1-0 on NHL, not trying to brag. Also went 3-0 on guarantees, 4-0 total on NBA. So a pretty solid week for me. Too bad I don't, have a Bovada account and put any money out.
Yeah, that. But let's go ahead and move into the first sport we're going to be talking about. I think we're going to go with F1 first here. So, last week, crazy race. Wouldn't you say, Matt?
Yeah, it was. And throughout the race, it started off pretty exciting. There was a couple of safety cars early, and then it really kind of lulled into a pretty boring middle of the race. There was a lot of DRS trains and cars just falling around, not a whole lot of overtakes. And then when we got towards the end, there was a lot of midfield battles, and then several cars had punctures in their tires in the last few laps, which made for a really exciting finish. And one of the cars that got punctures was the race leader, Lewis Hamilton, who ended up winning, but the margin was cut down, and it ended up being really close and a very exciting race.
Yeah, so for Matt, for people like us who are generally new to F1, obviously great ending, but overall not the most exciting race, in those middle laps. How would you say this compares to other F1 races in general?
Well, I would say that until the last few laps, it was probably the least entertaining race so far this season. Obviously, we're only 4 races in. But having watched for the last couple of years, there's typically more battling at the front than there has been so far this season, with Mercedes being so dominant so far this year. And a lot of people, especially that come in new to F1, expect there to be battles for the lead, and that's what people really want to see. And unfortunately, it just doesn't look like that's going to happen a whole lot this season. But there are still great battles in the midfield, especially teams like Ferrari and McLaren being so close to Racing Point and Renault. All of these teams are really competing for as many points as they can get. And after the top two teams, it really is just a mix of a bunch of different teams, and that is really exciting. That's something we can look forward to each week this season.
Well, Josh, it looks like I went 1-0 last week. You went 1-3 on your picks. How'd you feel about the event overall?
Yeah, my Lance Stroll hype train really ran off the rails. I was big on Racing Point. I'm not going to make that mistake again this week. I still like Stroll. Hate him in the video game. He does terrible for my F1 team. But I was all over Lando Norris. I'm not going to go with him again this week. The odds were a little too high for me for Lance Stroll or for Lando Norris going top 6 again this week. So I'm switching it up. But overall, I fell asleep during the middle of the race. So all I saw was pretty entertaining.
Yeah, so Hamilton blows that tire, gets a victory by just over 5 seconds. Obviously, Verstappen, it was the story. Took that pit to try and get fastest lap and lost his chance to win. But the big surprise, Leclerc finishes 3rd, as someone on the podcast predicted. What did y'all think of that?
When I heard that pick, I did not think it was a good one, I will be honest. And I told you that straight up. Did not think it was a good pick. Ferrari have really struggled this year, and especially a track like Silverstone, where they were at this past week, and they'll be returning this week. Ferrari really didn't seem like it was going to be a strong track for them. It seemed like Mercedes were obviously going to be the front runners, and then Red Bull and Racing Point both seemed like it was going to be a track that suited them. Obviously, Racing Point had just a terrible weekend, their worst weekend of the season so far. A lot of things went against them even before the race, but then the race itself wasn't good either. But Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari really took advantage of it. He made a great start after qualifying 4th, and he never really put a foot wrong. He was flawless all race. He had great restarts on the safety car restarts, and he earned his podium. He was in the right place to take advantage of the punctures that Valtteri Bottas, among others, had, and he really earned his podium this past week.
All right, great points, Matt. That was great insight on Kirk's questionable pick that ended up working out well.
Well, I won't be testing my luck again this week, but let's go ahead and get into what we're looking at this week.
So last week on my guarantees, I went Lewis Hamilton to win the race. I'm not gonna go, that chalky in my guarantees again this week. So I'm gonna take it in my regular F1 bets. Lewis Hamilton minus 278, still easy money to win the race. So it's going to be my first bet.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, Josh. Obviously he's the guy to beat here, and I don't anticipate it's going to happen. I've got Hamilton minus 278 to win as well. Matt, are you on board with that?
Yeah, I think at this point that's a pretty safe bet. The only thing that really can prevent that is his teammate, and his teammate this past week at the same track didn't look like he was quite at the level to really challenge him for the race win. So I think Lewis Hamilton is definitely a good pick for this week.
So my second bet, Verstappen, top 3, still easy money. He's the third best racer all year. He's one of the best drivers. He's in the second best car. Top 3 around minus 170. You can't. It's easy money. You can't beat that. So Verstappen top 3, minus 170.
Yeah, not one that I'm going to bet, but one that I would say is probably going to happen. I've got Bottas top 3 minus 435. Like I said, if you can get a parlay or something with it, that's something to look at. Not something I would bet straight up. Same thing with this other one I have. Mercedes, both drivers get points at minus 500. I think it's going to happen, but obviously no value there on it as a straight up bet. Where we get back into some value though, I'm actually pretty big on Red Bull this week. Think they're going to have a good week. So the last two bets I have, Red Bull, both drivers get points at minus 250, and Albon top 6 at minus 182.
So this next one is my most questionable bet. I'm going to redeem myself here, Matt. You're going to like my last bet. But my next one here is going to be Sebastian Vettel, top 6. That's at plus 155. I think he's just too good to have a repeat performance like he did this past week. I know he's having problems with Ferrari, with his team. He's on the way out. But I got a good feeling he has the best odds. I was on Lando Norris last week, but the odds weren't there, so I'm taking the value, and I'm going Vettel top 6. Matt, what do you think?
Well, those are very good odds, and for a driver the caliber of Sebastian Vettel, 4-time world champion, you feel like you should jump on that. But I just think the state of where he is with his team and Ferrari, he started off looking pretty well compared to his teammate. The car wasn't there the first few weeks, but he was still competing with Charles Leclerc in qualifying and in the race, and he was doing well for what he had as a car. And then this past week it seemed to change because Charles Leclerc qualified 4th and then got on the podium, and he really left his teammate Sebastian Vettel behind. And you have to wonder, usually teammates drive the same car, but this past week it certainly didn't look like Leclerc and Vettel were driving the same Ferrari. And you just have to think, are they just kind of leaving Vettel behind and focusing on Leclerc's car? Because as you said, Vettel is on his way out. That's a question that I don't think anybody outside Ferrari knows the answer to. But like you said, good value. And if that Ferrari for Sebastian Vettel starts working like we've seen it with Leclerc, then I think it's definitely a possibility he could get in the top 6.
Well, Matt, Josh, was that it on your F1 bets?
I have one more.
Okay.
This is the one that's going to redeem me in Matt's eyes. Pierre Gasly. Matt likes this guy. Top 10. He's at even for top 10. He finished seventh last week. Really cut his way through the field. He looked great. All those overtakes. So great driver. I think that's the best way to go right now. I think that's my best bet of the weekend actually. Besides my F1 guarantee at even money, Gasly top 10.
Well, yeah, I actually had that one too, and that was going to be one of my guarantees actually at Pierre Gasly to get in the points. I think it's when you see what he did last week, he tied for 10th in qualifying. He missed out on Q3 just because Esteban Ocon set his lap time before Pierre Gasly. So he ended up starting 11th, but he really cut his way through the field there in the second half of the race. The car looks great, and both AlphaTauris, Pierre Gasly and his teammate Daniil Kvyat, they both looked really strong, and Kvyat ended up crashing out early, but before that, you could see that the race pace in that car was really there, and it's really competitive in that midfield. But I think Pierre Gasly, with some of the moves he made, he really likes Silverstone as a track. I think that's a great pick for Pierre Gasly to get in the points.
All right, Matt. Well, you got anything else for us on F1 before we move on and end Parker's suffering here?
Parker, you got any final thoughts on F1 yourself?
I have absolutely zero thoughts on F1, but just about 10 seconds ago, I threw in a Lewis Hamilton and Jordan Spieth both to win this weekend parlay. So if anybody wants to ride that with me, we'll have some fun together.
I don't know how fun that's going to turn out.
Yeah, I just have one F1 bet that I want to throw out there before we move on, and it's head-to-head for teams, Renault against Racing Point. Renault is at plus 175 against Racing Point's minus 250 here. And before this past weekend, you wouldn't think to go Renault for any type of odds here because Racing Point looked so strong. But this past week, with Sergio Perez getting a positive test for COVID-19, they have Nico Hülkenberg as a reserve driver, and it's looking like he's going to be driving again this weekend. He struggled with neck problems, and he didn't even get to start the race this past Sunday because of a power unit issue. And so Racing Point just really aren't in a great place, it seems. And Renault looked really strong, both Ricciardo and Ocon getting some good points this past week. Ricciardo finishing 4th. That's his best finish of the year. So I think Renault could be really strong again this next weekend. And Racing Point, in the situation they're in, I like Renault with plus odds here head-to-head.
All right, Matt. Thanks a lot for your insight on F1. The podcast really needed that. because me and Kirk were just talking about stuff we didn't really know about. But speaking of Parker's Jordan Spieth bet, we can jump right into golf and let Kirk and Parker talk about a little bit of golf, because I don't have too many opinions on golf.
Yeah, Parker, I'm thinking this is probably going to be a one-on-one conversation between us on this one.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. You know, we got the first major in over a year, so we got some excitement going on for golf this weekend.
I'll quickly give a little bit of a recap from St. Jude last week. I didn't have a great week betting. That strong performance by Brooks in the first round, I kind of knew I was out of it early. Didn't make any bets further going down the weekend. My strongest performance was Webb Simpson, who finished 12th. And Justin Thomas pulls it off, coming in hot into this tournament. So, we'll see what happens this weekend. What are you seeing?
Well, it's going to be tough to fade a guy like JT with how well he's been playing the last couple weeks. But by the looks of how they're going out the rough in this golf course, it looks a lot like Bethpage golf course of last year, where my boy Jordan Spieth actually finished third. So we'll definitely be throwing a bet in for him. But just taking a look at the golf course, it looks like driving distance and being the ability to hit fairways is what's going to be a real key factor in this weekend's tournament.
Yeah, I agree with you. I saw that they had come out and looked at the course and decided it was too easy and narrowed out the fairways. This is a public course out in California. I got to agree on the winner's situation. Probably the two favorites are probably the two most likely, in my opinion, as well, and Justin Thomas and Brooks, who are both at 10-1. But DraftKings is a little more interesting because I didn't ride with either of those guys in DraftKings. I don't know if you did or not.
No, I didn't either. I had 4 bets to win this week, which were DJ, Xander, Morikawa, and Spieth. And the common theme there is that they all drive the ball extremely far, except Morikawa, who is one of the better scramblers on tour. And with the thick rough, he has a great shot to be able to hit a green in regulation out of the rough compared to a lot of the other guys.
Speaking of driving the ball far, how's my boy Bryson DeChambeau doing? Do you guys have him in any lineups?
I do not this week, just because, in my opinion, this isn't a course necessarily where hitting for distance and not knowing where it's going to end up is necessarily beneficial here.
More important question. Does anybody know the population of fire ants on the course? Because I hear he has a problem with those as well.
I'm sure if he ends up out in the middle of this rough somewhere, it's going to end up pretty high.
Good to know.
Yeah, Bryson's actually looking all right this week, if we're being honest. He just there's a good chance he ends up in those trees, which will not be very forgiving. So I'm sure we'll see a couple double or triple bogeys out of Bryson this weekend.
Well, let's go ahead and start talking a little DraftKings. I topped my lineup off with Rory, and that's mostly, I know he hadn't played the best golf he's ever played, but this is the first time in a while I can remember him not being the top price guy out when he's out there. So it's a good price to get him at, and the guy's near a guarantee, in my opinion, to make the cut. What do you think?
Yeah, I actually really like your Rory pick, especially with how much it seems that people are going to be fading him this week. He hasn't been playing well since we restarted after the shutdown and everything, but he is still the number 3 player in the world, and I think he's just about a lock to make the cut, and he should definitely be in contention come the weekend.
Who do you have in your first spot on DraftKings?
I'm starting with Xander, who's the only guy I'm playing in the 10K range. I think that in majors like this, it's important to try and get as many top-end guys as you can, so I went the cheap option. I think Xander's going to play great, drives the ball super well. He's in great form. If I'm not mistaken, he's got one top 10 over the last 3 weeks, I think.
I believe that's correct. Top 10.
Yeah,
last week.
6th last week.
And the 2 tournaments he was in before that, 13th and 14th, you can't really complain about that. He's been very consistent. Considered a pretty chalky play this weekend. But, I understand where you're coming from, and I like that one. Now, for me, I completely faded the 9,000s this week. Is there anybody in that range that interests you at all?
I took DJ at 9 straight. I just think that he's way too cheap. He's still Dustin Johnson. He's still one of the best golfers in the world. And $9,000 is just, it allows me to get one of the best golfers in the world and still fit in some pretty good guys towards the bottom.
Yeah, for the second guy that I've locked in this week is going to be Jason Day, which is kind of an odd pick if you haven't been watching lately, though. He's in his last 3 tournaments, he's been in 7th, 4th, and 6th. Guy looks healthy. Guy looks ready to go. Good price for as well as he's been playing as of late. And he's good in majors historically. You know, he's had top finishes. He's won a PGA championship before, so the stage definitely isn't too big for him. The main question people have is about his health and his back. But from what I've seen lately, he looks ready to go.
Yeah, he's been golfing great. He's been actually on fire, which is incredible with the way that his back has been, because I still believe that at any moment he could break his back just leaning over picking up the tee on T1.
Yeah, he always goes and grabs it. Looks like he's about to every time.
Yeah, but with the way he's been playing, I don't see why you don't play him in the 8,000s.
Who's the next golfer that you've got a lot of interest in going into DraftKings?
I was deciding between Morikawa and Berger, who are both playing really well off the restart. This course doesn't really fit their style of play, but they're just so consistent with a tournament that's going to have a cut, I think, at 65 in ties. I think as long as they can make the cut, they'll at least be a good enough value to possibly be in contention, work a top 10 or top 20, and be a great DraftKings pick.
Yeah, next guy I'm really looking at is Tommy Fleetwood, who has not played that well lately, but that's why you're getting him at a price of $7,700. And the guy's pretty accurate with his irons, which is going to be important here on these narrow fairways. So, you know, if he's one of the few guys who's hitting fairways in regulation out here, if they're as narrow as they've been played out to be, that could really play to his advantage. And you know, a price like $7,900 for a guy like Fleetwood, who has the capability to come out here and win a tournament like this potentially, seems like a good value to me.
Yeah, I like Fleetwood a pretty good bit. I opted to go a different route in that range, but Fleetwood has the same skill set as one of my guys, Louis Oosthuizen, who is basically just a not as good Tommy Fleetwood, but he seems to be playing a little bit better over the past few weeks. I also went with Jordan Spieth, who I'm just hoping can throw in every 20-foot putt this weekend, and if he does that, we'll be in pretty good shape.
Yeah, I'm also looking at putting Answer in here. How do you feel about that one?
When I was first looking at all the prices, I loved Answer. But I do worry about his skill set on this course. He's pretty good at hitting fairways, but he's not very good at hitting the ball very far. And if he misses any of those fairways with his driving distance, I worry a little bit about him.
Now, with those 4 in, I'm kind of walking those 4. Those are 4 that I really like. But I'm between a combination of 2 guys in 2 different situations where I could wrap up this lineup. I can either go with Hovland and Na, or I can go with Hideki and Neiman. Which one of those would you go with if you were me?
I think I'd go with Hovland and Na. Hideki scares me a lot this week.
It's a lot of boom or bust with Hideki.
It is, and I think Neiman's sort of the same way with the boom or bust, but he's got a pretty good chance of booming this week, I think. I actually like Neiman, but Hideki really scares me away.
Yeah, and I think this might be a good fit for Na. You know, with his short game and everything, it's definitely going to play to his advantage here. And you know, Hovland's just a top tier guy. You know, has been up and down, but has been on stages of this size before. I think he should be fine here.
Yeah, I think Hovland's going to really break onto the scene here pretty soon. He's going to have a few breakout weeks. He's going to get a win finally. I can't wait to see what Hovland's got in store.
Well, this is the last point I have, and then I'll let you take away anything else you still got. But you know I have to ask you about this guy. How's Tony Finau looking this week?
Tony Finau, my arch nemesis. I actually like Tony Finau a pretty decent bit this week. He's been playing so consistently. I don't think he's got a real good chance of winning this week. But I actually do think that he could contend for a major this year, just not this one. This one doesn't seem to play well to his skill set.
I actually did think of one more question. It's going to be important for the casuals here. Tiger Woods, what to expect?
I think Tiger's missing the cut this week.
I tend to agree with you. From what I've seen, the weather's not going to play well to his back situation, and I mean he just hasn't looked that great so far coming back this year. I'm hoping he's ready to go by the time we get to the Masters, but I don't think this is the tournament for him.
Yeah, I'd love to see him win and contend and Tiger on a Sunday again, but I just don't think that this is the week for it. Hopefully he can get healthy and come back for Augusta.
Well, Parker, do you have anything else for us on golf before we go ahead and move on?
I think I'm just going to throw one 3-ball bet out there, which I usually like to stay away from, but it's a major, so why not, right? So I'm going to throw Sung Kang in his 3-ball over Dylan Fratelli and John O'Leary at plus 145.
I like it. I like that one a lot. Well, guys, if you can't tell, there's a reason we brought these guys on. Obviously, they add a lot to F1 and golf that we just, we don't bring. And so, we love to have them here. We're glad to make them a part of the podcast. So a great first couple segments, don't you think, Josh?
Yeah, that's a great point, Kirk. But now let's get back to, a real sport like the NBA. With the NBA's Zion Williamson. But first, we can talk about what we did well last week. Obviously, my strategy of picking teams in games that mattered worked out really well. I took Portland, I took the Heat, I took the Pacers. I also had an over in the Heat Nuggets game. I think that line at 210 on the over was way too low. I think they're going to hit big numbers here.
I think it was like 240 in that game, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, they're hitting really big numbers. So I like overs a lot. But overall, I 3-0, 4-0 actually in NBA. Follow all my bets this week. I'm gonna go perfect again.
Yeah, I went 1-2 here, but I was actually pretty happy with my performances, believe it or not. NBA looked good this week. No coronavirus cases inside the bubble. We saw the Lakers walk up the number 1 seed. And actually an interesting point in betting, fun fact for you, the Nets beat the Bucks as a 19-point underdog for the biggest point spread upset in the NBA since 1993. So I thought that was pretty wild. Cool thing to watch this week's been TJ Warren, 3 straight 30-point games with one game going for 53. But the story of last week and probably going forward until we get to the playoffs, and the thing that's going to help determine my picks this week is the chaos at the bottom of the Western Conference. And now that Jaren Jackson tore his meniscus, he's going to miss the rest of the season for the Grizzlies. It really makes things interesting down there.
Yeah, well, I mean, you couldn't be more right there. And with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and get my first pick out because I know everyone else has it. Pelicans -4. Pelicans -4 against the Kings. Adam Silver's getting Zion Williamson in the playoffs. Zion Williamson is basketball. He is the NBA. He is, a global game. I was going to go a little more political there, but I decided against it. I think the perfect way to
game.
What's that?
Taiwanese game.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that game. So I -4 is the best pick here. That's an easy way to start 1-0.
Yeah, sure. Parker, you gotta get in on NBA here. I don't think Matt. Are you interested in NBA here?
Maybe a little bit. I think the battle in the Western Conference for this last playoff spot is really interesting. And I watched the Trailblazers and Rockets game the other night, and that was really interesting because the Rockets, they rely on three-point shooting so much, and it just wasn't really there for them. And they were able to keep it close, but the Trailblazers looked really good. And I think of those teams right there battling in the Western Conference, they might be the strongest in my opinion. And I really like them going forward.
What about you, Parker? Anything on NBA this week?
I've got a couple of picks, but I truly have no idea how the playoffs are going to shake out.
Okay. Well, I'll go ahead and give you an idea of how I think it's going to shake out a little differently than what Josh is seeing. My first pick, I'm going to go, well, I guess this kind of plays into what Josh is thinking, but we'll get to my pick that doesn't. Friday, I've got the Thunder over the Grizzlies. Thunder have looked pretty solid so far. They beat the Jazz in their opener, took a loss to the Nuggets in overtime. But this bet's really more about the Grizzlies. They're spiraling right now. They've already lost most of their lead for that thing. I think they're up a game now.
Yeah, I don't think they've won yet.
Yeah, and now that they've lost Jaren Jackson, I just don't see the motivation there with a couple of teams right on their tails that are hungry and want to get in. Good team going forward. The Grizzlies are young. They've got a young core. I like what they're doing there. I just don't think this is their year. I don't think it ever was. And so for those reasons, I'm going to take the Thunder on Friday over the Grizzlies. Parker, what you got for us?
I got a couple of Friday games that I've chosen. First off, I have the Raptors over the Celtics. I think that's going to be a spread of about 5-ish, and
Sure.
I said that I'd be willing to take it as long as it's 6 or less. The Raptors just seem to be a lot better defensively and have been shooting the 3-ball really well, especially in the smaller gym, which seems like it's affecting a lot of teams' 3-point shooting positively. And from what I believe, it seems that Kemba Walker might be out for the Celtics also. I'm not 100% sure on that, but with Kemba Walker missing, I think that gives a real big advantage.
Yeah, I like that pick, Parker. It kind of plays into what me and Josh were talking last week when we were talking about teams' potential to come out of the East. Obviously, the Bucks are the big favorite here, but people are underestimating the Raptors just because they don't have Kawhi anymore. That is a very well-built team, so I like that pick a lot there. Josh, what you got?
I'm going back to the Eastern Conference. Not a whole lot to play for. There's still a little bit of seeding left to be decided. The Pacers need to hold off the 76ers for that 5th seed. They already have a game and a half up on them right now. Pacers are playing the Lakers Saturday evening. Lakers already locked up the number 1 seed. I don't think they're going to send LeBron out there too much. I think the odds will be, decent for this one. They're not out yet, but with the way, Warren and Oladipo and that whole team have been playing lately, I got to like the Pacers here. I think they've been playing really well. Their game suits the small arenas. So Pacers over Lakers, possibly at plus money. We'll just have to wait and see on that.
Yeah, no, I understand that pick a lot, though. The Lakers have wrapped up what they needed to do. Who knows who they're really going to play at this point. And probably will still keep playing some guys, at least get them some minutes because they want to, keep them warmed up coming, back just now. But yeah, I agree. I like that pick. The Pacers have looked as good as anybody at this point. My last pick, I'm going to go Sunday, Trailblazers beating the 76ers. I think the Trailblazers are going to be the team to get that last spot. A lot of star power on that team. They're looking really good. You can tell they smell blood in the water. That they're coming for the 8th seed, and the team's playing so well right now. And in my opinion, they're good enough to get that spot. I think they were going to get that spot regardless of what happened with this season. And the Sixers just haven't done that much to impress me so far. Their defense just hasn't been there. They almost blew a lead last week against the Spurs. They gave up 43 points in the 4th quarter. I think the Blazers know what they're playing for here, and I think they're going to pull out another win.
Parker, you got any more picks for the weekend?
Yeah, my last pick, I'm going to take the Kings over the Nets on Friday evening. I think the Nets are sending out a high school basketball team with all the injuries that they have, and their win over the Bucks at plus 1,600 isn't going to fool me.
Yeah, no, I understand that pick completely. They're struggling to even roster a team right now. That game really did shock a lot of people, but yeah, I got to agree with you there. That's probably a good pick.
So before we wrap up NBA, everybody knows my now famous saying based off, everybody knows about I want Chiefs, give me Chiefs. Now it's I want Clippers, give me Clippers to win the NBA Finals. Matt and Parker, who do you guys got winning the Finals this year?
Matt, say it with me. I want Clippers, give me Clippers.
Matt didn't say it with you. That's unfortunate.
I'll say it with you. 1, 2, 3. I want Clippers, give me Clippers. Everybody knows it.
That audio is probably going to need some editing. That was pretty loud. But, hey, I got to agree with you. I like the Clippers a lot, and I think they got a good shot to win it.
I think the Clippers could win it, but I don't know how they can show that they're the best team in the NBA when they're not the best team in their own city. I don't think they have a chance.
Lakers guy.
The Lakers have
Lakers
just
Matt.
Looked so good this season, and they're in the bubble now, and they can rest players and make sure they're fresh, ready for the playoffs.
Yeah, make sure JaVale McGee is real fresh. That's a great deep roster.
Well, they are the 1 seed, and as of right now, they look the best out of anybody. So.
I'll remind you that in 2015, the Atlanta Hawks were the number 1 seed in the playoffs. But keep going.
And who did they lose to? They lost to LeBron James, who is on the Lakers now. He is the difference maker.
I don't think the Hawks had the best basketball player of all time on their team like the Clippers do.
Yeah, I also don't think I almost let that slide. I'm just going to. It's easier to. Yeah, but he also didn't have to go against a team composed of 3 of the best defensive players in the NBA. So I don't think they're going to have trouble shutting down that offense.
Right. One being, a once-in-a-generation all-time legend like Kawhi Leonard.
Well, we saw them play in the bubble already, and who won that game, if you guys can remind me?
Do you think Kawhi Leonard cares about regular season games? He's
Well,
programmed for the playoffs.
He looked like he cared when
Literally.
he tried everything in his power to get a shot off in that last possession and got locked up by LeBron James.
Do you
the
think
one
that
and
was him
only.
at 100% power? I don't think so.
Well, I guess we'll have to see, but
All right. Well, good NBA section, guys. It's time to move into BYOB. It's Bring Your Own Bullshit, making its return. Anybody have any clue what BYOB is this week?
I have no idea, Kirk. You usually keep this one secret from each other. This is the first time having guests in studio for it, so I'm really interested to see what you brought.
All right. Well, I brought an age-old question for everyone. I hope you all have come prepared with answers. Pick 2. They will defend you. The rest is coming to kill you. I hope if you guys can't hear it, everyone at the studio is cracking up. They love it. This was an old trend on the internet a couple years ago, but it's recently come back up in our group, and it's Josh is calling. He needs first on this one.
Well, Kirk, go ahead and explain the photo for everybody.
Sure. So it's a photo with a bunch of animals saying, as I said, you pick 2 of the groups, and they will defend you, and the rest is coming to kill you. So we've got 50 eagles, 10 alligators or crocodiles. I'll let you choose whichever you want. 3 brown bears, 15 wolves, 1 man with a rifle, 7 bulls, 4 lions, 5 gorillas, and the obvious dominant choice, 10,000 rats.
Well, the obvious answer here, Kirk, is the 50 eagles and the 10,000 rats. Everybody knows this. This isn't up for debate. But I'll let our guests discuss this while I think of a rebuttal. I think Parker, you have the dissenting opinion here, so you can go ahead and go first.
All right, I know I'm on an island here, but if I have rats defending me, I'm screwed.
Rat fact: a group of rats is called a mischief.
Said mischief is screwing me.
Well, here's my main point here for you, Parker. If you don't pick the rats, you're going to lose.
Rat fact: rat teeth never stop growing.
Fun fact. Thank you, Josh. Yeah, if you don't have the rats on your side, I really don't see how you win this one. It's 10,000 of an animal.
And we did the math, and you guys can check us on this, but I believe it was over 200 rats per animal. If you pick the rats to defend you and the hawks, it was over 200 rats per animal. And even if you think about a bear or a wolf or whatever is coming at you, over 200 rats swarming it, there's just no way it's getting through.
Yeah, speaking of the numbers, rat fact, a single rat can produce 25,000 droppings in a year. That's crazy.
Thank you, Josh. Glad you have all these stats in your head. Didn't come prepared. Yeah, and then I think the obvious second choice has to be the eagles. It's the only one on here that can fly. If you don't pick them, you got to go against them, and you got nothing on your team that can stop that. And I'm my entire plan, I'm sending the eagles out there to blind them, and then the rats are going to eat them all.
I'm a big fan of the 10,000 rats. Everybody knows that. I want 10,000 rats. Give me 10,000 rats. But I could see where he's coming from with gorillas. They have opposable thumbs. They can grab things. They're really powerful. I really like bears, though. Bears are probably my third favorite choice here.
Any bear facts?
I have no bear facts, but if you have to know, rat fact. Rats have been known to be able to swim for over a mile.
Thank you, Josh.
But yeah, bears, grizzly bears, probably my second best choice here. I mean, they're fast. They're really the all around top unit here. They just have too low of numbers to take.
And I heard an argument from one of our friends' parents, actually, when we were discussing this. And their argument was not picking the Hawks. They could pick the man with the rifle. Now, you could say, okay, if he has somewhat of a distance between himself and the birds flying at him, he might have a chance to take out a good bit of them. But there's 50 and only one man. So to me, there's just no question you have to take the Hawks. It's the only one that can come from above and really cause damage through the air. It's a no-brainer, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's a great point, Matt. Rat fact, Sumatran bamboo rats can weigh up to 8.8 pounds. That's a whole lot of rat, guys.
That's a whole lot of rat, Parker.
And when you think of over 200 of those per animal, that's a lot of weight and a lot of power coming at you.
You have anything to defend yourself here, Parker?
Here's my defense. If they're getting elite 8.8 pound rats, I'm getting elite 1,500 pound gorillas. In which case, I believe that a gorilla could kill approximately 50 rats per 3 seconds.
Well, Josh, he probably doesn't know this about rats, does he? Go ahead and tell him.
Well, yeah, I mean, rat fact. Rats can chew through cinder blocks and lead pipes. Last time I checked, gorillas don't have lead bones.
No, but gorillas are a lot stronger than said cinder blocks or lead pipes.
But rat fact, I've never seen a gorilla beat up the Black Plague.
Thank you, Josh. All right, I think that's all we're going to need here. I think we've heard everything we need to hear. Very clear answer.
Rat fact, rats' whiskers are more sensitive even than human fingertips. Rat fact.
All right, well, that was a great rat fact. Thanks, Josh. Great BYOB this week.
We have MLB coming up next, right?
Yeah, I believe that's correct. Let's go ahead and move on. MLB last week. Quick recap. Josh, you went 2-0. I went 3-0. 5-0 as a podcast. Can't really beat that.
Yeah, I'm going to go, with my picks, I'm going to go piggybacking off what I did last week. I'm riding the old Colby Allard sucks train. Shout out Lawson. This guy throws meatballs. Straight down the pipe, 80 miles an hour. Angels beating the Rangers. Don't have a line for that one yet. No odds. But I'm also taking the over in that game. There's no way the over is more than 9.5. And it's going to be more than 9.5 because that guy sucks.
Well, I was flying right into it. Didn't give me a chance to do a recap of baseball last week. But
do you want to recap baseball? I was recapping my picks.
I was going too briefly, but I like your picks this week. I do. Just wanted to bring up a little bit of what's going on in baseball. Obviously, unlike the NBA, they have had problems with COVID. Players can't stay out of the strip clubs. Nobody wants to talk about that. So we're going to leave that alone. But the Yankees have looked pretty unstoppable. Aaron Judge is hitting home runs every night. The Cubs have looked impressive despite Craig Kimbrell. Glad the Braves didn't pay him. And the Marlins made it back, I believe, yesterday and beat the Orioles in their return game. So that's good to see. That shows the teams can bounce back from this and still compete. Not that the Marlins are going to compete for anything, but they can compete in some games. And then sad news right here in Atlanta. I don't like to focus on the Braves too much, but lost Mike Soroka this week to a torn Achilles. You guys have anything you want to talk about as far as baseball this week? Anything that you saw that interested you?
Yeah, got any bets you like this week?
I've got a couple of Friday games that I'm betting on. But as far as the Marlins go, Kirk, they are currently 4-1 after a 7-inning win today over the Baltimore Orioles.
Hey, you can't beat that.
That puts them right there in second in the NL East, does it not?
I think they're in first if you
look at win percentage.
Yep. But just to get straight to the picks, on Friday, I'm taking the Astros over the A's. Greinke's coming off a pretty tough outing in his first game, and the A's have been riding a hot streak recently. But the A's have not played much competition. They've been playing the Angels and the Rangers pretty much exclusively so far this season, and both teams have combined for 5 wins through 20-ish games. I think the Astros are going to be an underdog, and that they've got a real good shot at beating the A's on Friday.
Okay. I'm going with the game on Friday as well. I'm going to take the Rockies over the Mariners there. Obviously, the Mariners haven't looked outstanding up to this point. They're 4-8. And the Rockies' projected starter here will be Antonio Senzatella. Anyone know if I'm pronouncing that right? Senzatella?
That actually sounds right to me.
Okay.
Sounds Italian.
Rockies have won both their starts with Senzatella on the mound so far. Against teams that are better than the Mariners, in my opinion, beat the A's and beat the Padres. And he gave up 3 combined earned runs in those games. And most importantly, in my eyes, he's getting a lot of run support. 17 combined runs in between those 2 games. I don't think they should have any trouble with the Mariners here. Probably going to be a fairly heavy favorite, I would think. So I'm going to ride the Rockies here over the Mariners on Friday.
Matt, you look like you have something to say. Do you have any picks over there, or we keep rolling? No? Okay. I'm going to take the over in the Braves-Phillies game. Kyle Wright on the mound with his 7.5 ERA. The Phillies are throwing out Velasquez with a 12 ERA. Braves pitching outside of Soroka and Fried this year has been abysmal, but their lineup has been one of the best in the league. So I'm pretty much taking the over in every Braves game, except the ones where Max Fried pitches this year.
Yeah, I think that's pretty fair analysis. Parker, you got another one for us?
Yeah, I'm kind of following Josh's themes of overs. I'm taking the Marlins-Mets over on Friday. We've got Michael Wacha throwing for the Mets, who's just not very good. And if the Marlins can keep this hot streak going, they're not winning games by much, but they're scoring a few runs. If they can get 4 or 5 in there, I think the Mets are going to score all over Sandy Alcantara.
Yeah, I can see that one as well. My final pick of the baseball slate this weekend, I'm going to go Saturday and take the Cubs over the Cardinals. Cardinals are right now, they're sitting out because of COVID, and they weren't looking all that great before that, to be honest. And the Cubs on the other side have looked pretty impressive. Like I said earlier, Kimbrel's had his problems. Glad the Braves didn't take him. But they're still at 9-2, and they're on 5 straight wins. Could be 7 by the end of this series with the Royals before they go to play the Cardinals. They'll have Mills on the mound in all likelihood. 2-0 so far, coming off of 7 innings of 3-hit ball and a shutout against the Royals a couple days ago. So I think the Cubs are going to continue their good fortune here. I think they're going to win this game pretty easily.
All right. If nobody else has any MLB picks, we can jump on into the co-main event here, the UFC picks. I guess I'll start it off.
Well, you want to talk a little bit about last week?
Oh, we can talk about last week. We're just getting deep in this episode. I'm forgetting things. Yeah, I mean, Holland didn't fight, so I'm counting that one as a win. Emmers didn't fight the guy I thought he was going to fight, but he won anyway, so I'm counting that one as a win. Vicente Luque, he won. That's a win. And then Shabazian failed to show up. Brunson actually looked really good this week. He was really efficient with his strikes. Used his wrestling in a way that he hasn't been using it recently. He hasn't been efficient. And really, he looked like a different Derek Brunson out there. So, I was really shocked to see how that one ended. It was kind of disappointing. That elbow Shabazian took was disgusting, and they shouldn't have let him go out there for that next round.
Yeah, been a lot of complaints lately about these fights going too long. He did not look ready to go back out there. A lot of complaints about Herb Dean lately. Just a really weird card from top to bottom. I think they only ended up getting eight fights off there. Had guys fainting backstage right before their fight. On fights that actually went off, as planned. Me and Josh both went 1-1. Obviously, Josh, taking credit for
Yeah, I went 3-1.
But yeah, off the fights that went as designed, 1-1 there. Really happy with what I saw from Luque, if I can say that. Luque looked really good, just as impressive as I expected. But that Shabazian fight just was not what I expected to see from him at all. I was talking last week about how close he was to being a title contender, and now I don't know what he is. I know what he is. He's young, so he's gonna get another shot to get up there. But it's very disappointing that this stint of trying to make it up and get a super fight against Adesanya, it looks like he's going to take a step back, and it might be a while before we get there.
Yeah, I mean, the guy's got nothing but time. He's 22. He's not on the fast track that Adesanya was, when Adesanya beat Brunson. But Adesanya, going into that fight, was much more experienced than Shabazian was. He was already a world champion kickboxer at that point, and he was making his transition to the UFC. So it's a little hard to make the comparisons. People do it anyway, but I see good things from Shabazian in the future after this setback.
Parker, any thoughts on what you saw last week?
Not a ton, but Luque looked amazing. I can't wait to see who he has next and what he's going to have in store over the next 12 months or so as far as UFC goes. And I actually can't wait to see Brunson fight now. He looked a lot better than he has in the past few fights that I've seen out of him. I went back and watched some footage of his prior fights, and he just didn't look at all like he did in those few fights.
Yeah, he gotten credited as just being a gatekeeper at this point. Now it's looking like maybe he's got some in the tank to do a little more still. But, Josh, are you ready to get us kicked off going into this week?
Yeah, no, I mean, Brunson looked revitalized, and I just wanted to make the point that I too, am a big Luque fan. Big time looking forward to what he's going to get into. So for this week, though, I didn't see a whole lot of value that I liked outside of the main event. So I got a big parlay going here. I'm not going to spoil the main event. We'll get to that when we get to it. But, I like Holland again. This week, he's going against a guy on short notice. He's got big odds there, minus 347. So it's not looking like that one for a solo pick, but I like him. And then the guy that lost to Drew Dober most recently has a funny name. There's a Q in there, and the last letter is a T. It starts with an H. I don't know how to pronounce that, but he's minus 275. I like him in this fight against a guy making his UFC debut. It looks like he's trying to get back on the fast track to the rankings.
You said you had Holland at minus 275?
347.
I got him at minus 275 here, so
I guess
that's a little better odds.
Yeah, a lot better.
Holland was my first pick on this card. This fight just got done last night, I believe. The odds were just getting up, when I got on this morning.
Yeah, I got him this afternoon.
And Holm was scheduled to fight last week against Giles, who fainted backstage just before the fight. Holland has been trying to get something booked all week. I don't know if you've been keeping up with it. He's been going after Ed Herman all week on Twitter, which has been pretty entertaining, and then called him a bitch today for not getting the contract signed and getting it done. So pretty funny there. But fighting Buckley here. It's his UFC debut. He might have a future in the UFC, but I don't think Holland is the type of guy you want to go against in your debut fight. I think he's going to win pretty easily here.
Yeah, I like that Holland pick a lot. And minus 247 is a pretty good price tag. I think that he could be up close to minus 400, minus 450 with a short notice fight like that. But jumping into my first pick, I'm going with Giga Chikadze at minus 205.
Yeah, no, see, I see that fight on Bovada, but I actually don't believe that fight's on this card.
Oh, is it really
Yeah,
not?
I made that mistake too, but I'll tell you, Giga Chikadze, that guy is pretty awesome. I'll give you that. I would bet on that guy too.
He would have kicked Alex Caceres' ass.
Oh, he's going to eventually. But I looked at the card today on Tapology, and I didn't see it on there, even though it was on the Bovada odds.
Disappointing.
Yeah.
But it's good analysis to pick Giga here because that guy's really good.
Yeah, not 100% sure. I see what you guys are looking at, and I'm not 100% sure what's going on here because I don't even see it in the canceled or fizzled bouts, which normally any fight that was considered to potentially be on the card is put in that spot. So weird one there, understandable mistake, but I gotta agree with you. I do like Giga if he had been fighting there. You got another one for us, Parker?
I do. I'm actually just fading Chris Weidman this week. He's 1-5 over his last 6, and he's been finished in all 5. I believe 2 knockouts and 3 TKOs. Akhmedov, I believe is how you pronounce that. He seems to be riding a hot streak, and with Weidman's bad chin, I think he's going to take care of business.
Now, what was that you said you put in your notes beforehand? Really insightful.
Weidman equals bad.
Yeah, I've heard that. I think that's a good point. A lot of the pundits are saying that.
Yeah, I actually did have a fight before that one, but I'll bounce back to it. I'll go ahead and get into that one. I'm going with you. I would add the fact to say Weidman equals bad now. Weidman was good at a time. Was the first guy to really beat Silva. He has had a good career. I just don't think he's in that spot anymore. I like Weidman. I looked for a reason to take him here, but I just can't do it. This isn't the Weidman of the past. I don't see any place here really where he has an advantage except, maybe in cardio, and that's even iffy. And on top of that, his chin's just made of glass now. Omari isn't a knockout artist by anyone's definition, but I think he's got a definite striking advantage here, and with the streak he's been getting knocked out at lately, I wouldn't be surprised if that happened. So even though Weidman, I don't really understand why he's the slight favorite here, I'm going Akhmedov with even odds.
Yeah, so if you don't mind, my next one is the main event. Do you guys have any more before that?
Yeah, I do have a slight lean for Tim Means. Not sure if I'll bet that one or not yet. Not super confident in it, but he's plus 110. I think it's a pick 'em and, a little bit of value there.
I took a look at that fight. I agree with you. I like the value with it. I just couldn't muster up enough info to bet it yet.
Agreed. I'm just not super confident in it at this point. I might be by the time the fights get here, but not yet. But another one that I thought you would be taking here, Parker. Surprised that you didn't bring up this one. Darren Stewart versus Maki Pitolo, otherwise known as Coconut Bombs.
I hate that guy.
So do I. That's why I'm betting against him. I'm going Darren Stewart minus 170. I like him a lot here, and more than anything, this is the fate of Coconut Bombs. I mean, I'm not a believer in him. I saw what I needed to see from him in that UFC debut where he lost a decision to Potter. He was able to come out and prove me wrong against Bird, lost me a little money in his second fight. But Darren Stewart is not Charles Bird. He's big. He's got a height advantage. He's got a reach advantage. He's got heavy hands. And I don't expect any coconut bombs in this fight. Give me Darren Stewart at minus 170.
Yeah, I mean, Coconut Bombs is his nickname for a reason. He's either going to knock you out or he's going to get mauled in 3 rounds. So I like our chances with Stewart.
Either you guys got anything else? The next one for me is the main event as well.
Coconut fact. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, main event. Main event is going to be, I'm taking Oleinik here. I love Oleinik. He has crazy submissions. He can get you in a Ezekiel choke while you're mounting him. His ground game is too good. I think he can eat shots even from Derek Lewis here. Get on the inside, take him down, wear him out. This is a 5-round fight, remember. And at plus 170, the underdog, I think we're all going to be in agreement here, but you got to take that here. So with all my bets together, I got Holland a little lower than you did, Kirk. So I got a 3-fight parlay at plus 374.
I don't understand this line in the slightest, to be honest with you. Oleinik's got probably, I don't know this is a fact, but probably the most experience in the UFC. He's got like 70 professional fights, like over 40 wins by submission, which is insane. I don't get this line at all. I think Oleinik is a significantly better fighter than Derek Lewis. Lewis has done almost nothing to really impress me. I mean, he's big, he's got heavy hands, but that's about it. I thought he lost his last fight against Latifi. I thought that was a terrible decision when they didn't give that one to Latifi. And I think Oleinik is definitely a significant step up from Latifi. I mean, just so much experience in a surreal ground game, and Lewis has none. So I think it's an easy choice unless you think Oleinik is going to get clipped early. I'm going Oleinik here at plus 170.
I couldn't agree more. I think it's going to be a little difficult to get Oleinik early like that. He seems to have a pretty good chin, judging by his last few fights, even though at his old age, usually chins fall off up there. But he seems to be doing all right, and his ground game is just incredible. Plus 170 is a steal for this one.
Oh yeah, I agree completely. Matt, do you haven't spoken in a while? Do you have I know you're new to UFC a little bit, but do you have any thoughts on the card this weekend?
I think I agree with you guys on the main card. That's about all I got to say.
That's a great pick, Matt. I think you're really getting into it, and you're really coming along in your UFC knowledge. That was phenomenal.
Fantastic insight. All right, well, I think that's about it on that. I think we're about ready to move into our guarantees. 5-1 as a duo on guarantees last week. I went 2-1. Josh came in 3-0. Can't beat that. Let's see if we can do it again this week.
Yeah, I'm gonna go 3-0 again. I'm piggybacking off the old UFC. I'm going to go right back into UFC for my first guarantee. Olynyk versus Lewis, 5-round fight, will not go the distance. I guarantee it.
Yeah, that's a great pick, Josh. Probably should have gone that way myself, but I'm really confident in Olynyk here. I like him a lot in this spot. I don't know why. I have no confidence in Derek Lewis. I'm going to Olynyk plus 170 as a guarantee.
Well, yeah, I mean, that fight's he's either going to submit him, or Derek Lewis is going to knock him out. This is the same logic I had last week with the Brunson-Shabazian fight. It went the wrong way for me, but still the right way because I got it right. But I think with a 5-round fight, these guys don't have the best gas tanks. There's no way they're going to be able to stay standing, for 5 rounds. So, just I guarantee it won't go the distance.
Matt, you got any guarantees for us?
I do, and we'll just go back to F1 here. And as I mentioned earlier in the podcast, Pierre Gasly to finish in the points in the top 10 this weekend at the 70th anniversary Grand Prix at Silverstone. Really like this pick. Pierre Gasly's been in great form. He had a great result this past weekend. He really likes this track, and I think that car is performing well. I think he'll get in the top 10, and for even odds, that's just a great bet. And my next one is looking at both drivers for any team recording points in the race. And for me, McLaren at minus 154 is a great bet because barring disaster, the two McLarens shouldn't have any problem really being in the top 6 or 7 cars, much less in the top 10. So again, this past weekend, they both looked really good throughout the race. Carlos Sainz got unlucky with a puncture late. That dropped him out of the points. But the McLarens have been fairly consistent. They had a little bit of a down week in Hungary, but they've been consistent all year, and I fully expect them to be in the points this upcoming weekend. And my last one...
Hold on, man. One second before you get to your last one. The thing we do here is when you say your bet, you say, I guarantee it. So Parker, you'll pick up on this. You say, I guarantee. So in your last one, when you say your bet, just say, I guarantee it.
Very important.
Go ahead. Very important. Go ahead.
Okay, well, I guarantee both McLarens will finish in the points this coming weekend.
That was wrong.
Just go again. Just go to your last one. Just go to your last one. You're good. You're all good. Just go to the last one.
Okay, my last one is for both cars to finish race. You got all the teams here with a lot of different odds, but the one that I like is Alfa Romeo. This is one that might fly under the radar for a lot of people because they're not a team that's really fighting for points consistently. But they've been reliable this year. They've had one DNF between both cars throughout the first 4 races, and it's been Kimi Räikkönen in the first race. It was a fluke where a tire just fell off his car on a safety car restart. Maybe it wasn't screwed on tight enough, but it was a really weird thing to happen, and something like that you'd think it surely won't happen again. Both cars have been reliable. Both drivers are reliable. You look at the other teams that are usually around them, like Williams and Haas. They have drivers like Nicholas Latifi and Grosjean that are really mistake prone, and Giovinazzi and Raikkonen are 2 pretty reliable drivers. So both Alfa Romeos are going to finish the race this weekend at the 70th anniversary Grand Prix. I guarantee it.
There we go. We got there. I threw in one F1 bet into my guarantees as well. I'm taking Albon top 6 as my second guarantee.
Parker, let's hear your first guarantee. You haven't said much in the guarantee segment yet.
All right, well, my first guarantee, I'm actually going to one-up Kirk here. I'm actually going to go Olynyk by submission.
Wow, okay.
It was very difficult to decide to put something at that low of an odds in my guarantee. I think it's going to be around plus 250, plus 300, but I guarantee it.
Yeah, I like that. I like
that
a lot.
Great pick. I'm going to go to F1. I think everybody's going to like this one. It's very creative. I decided not to take Lewis Hamilton here. Kirk, don't shake the table. I decided not to take Lewis Hamilton here because, that was too easy last week. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the pole sitter will also win the race at -182, which is really genius because Lewis Hamilton's going to win pole. So you get Lewis Hamilton at much better odds than you did if you just took Lewis Hamilton. It's really a genius pick. So pole sitter also wins race. I guarantee it.
Fair enough. My final guarantee here, I'm going to go Thunder over Grizzlies. I think the Grizzlies have lost all motivation. They've lost Jaren Jackson. They've got a couple teams right on their tail. I think the Thunder should win this one. Don't have a line yet, but I wouldn't be too worried about it. I think the Grizzlies are dead. So I'm going to guarantee that and pass it back over to Parker.
I like that a lot, Kirk. For my second guarantee, I'm going with the Mets-Marlins over on Friday. I think there's a great shot that those two pitchers just can't handle it. The over could hit by the third inning. So I guarantee that one. And I'm going to jump back over to golf for my third guarantee. I'm going to take Sung Kang in his 3-ball. Sung Kang drives the ball significantly better than Dylan Fratelli and John O'Leary, who I've actually never heard of, and I know about 400 golfers. So I guarantee it.
Hey, I like the guarantees, and great show this week, guys.
Hold on.
Oh,
I got my third and final guarantee. I got to get it out there. So I'm taking the Canadians over the Penguins in Game 4. They're playing Game 3 right now. Right now, it's looking like it's going to be an elimination game, and it's win or go home for the old Canadians.
They did win Game 1.
They
correct?
won Game 1, lost Game 2, and they're currently down 2-1 to the Penguins. So if they lose tonight, it's win or go home for them in this 5-game series. So I'm taking my Canadians with Carey Price in goal. I think he's in goal. I didn't check. He could be hurt. He's probably hurt, knowing me, knowing the Canadians. But they're my team, So I'm taking Montreal. I guarantee it.
Oh, but you guys still have Gallagher and PK Subban and
No, we don't.
Oh yeah,
no,
that's
we
right.
don't have
they
those.
traded all their good players.
No, I think we might still have Gallagher. I think he's still on the team. I think.
But thanks for that pick, Josh. Great show, guys. Appreciate having you on. If you guys want to go ahead and give your goodbyes, and then we'll close out of here.
Yeah, thanks a lot for having me, guys. I'm hoping to be back on sometime in the future.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on the SandTrap Podcast. Look forward to being back. And remember that Chick Hicks is the 2006 Piston Cup winner. Nobody else.
Yeah, not Lightning McQueen.
Yeah, this was by far the longest podcast we've ever done, by a lot.
Not really. We're only sitting at 1 hour, 7 minutes.
Oh, really? It feels like 2 hours.
Yeah. Yeah, so, really appreciate the listeners wherever you're listening. Like I said, now on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. All of them were SandTrap Podcast. Please like, subscribe, leave a comment, tell us how much you love the show. Find us on Twitter at SandTrap Podcast. And we'll talk to you guys next week. Josh, you want to go ahead and get us out of here?
Thank you for listening. This has been the SandTrap.
Rat Pack.